I'm Sire, and this is Conversations with Sire. Today, my guest is my friend, Foster. Claire Rudy Foster is a queer, non binary trans writer who lives in Portland, Oregon. Foster is a graduate of Reed College and also holds an MFA in creative writing. They are the author of short story collections Shine of the Ever, which the Oprah Magazine named as one of the best LGBTQ books of the year in 2019. Foster has been in recovery from alcoholism and addiction since 2007, which led them to co-author American Fix, Inside the Opioid Addiction Crisis and How to End It in 2018. Welcome, my friend, Foster.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here, Sire.
I'm excited.
I'm nervous.
This has been like in the mix. We have scheduled and rescheduled and scheduled and
we have,
rescheduled and scheduled and rescheduled. I can't even.
we have,
But
quarantine persists, and here we are.
here we are. So your bio is a mouthful, one of accomplishments, but also you used Claire Rudy Foster, which is your
Mm-hmm.
birth name, as
Mm-hmm.
your professional name.
Yes.
But I know you as Foster.
Mm-hmm.
So why did you decide to keep your birth name as when you changed your name?
As my name. Um, you know, I I feel like um, if I had been further along in my transition when I started getting more professional attention, it would have been different. And I also think that if I had not been as far along as a writer, it would have been different. I hate to say it, but SEO definitely informed my decision. I
Okay.
wanted to be, I wanted people to be able to find me. And there
Yeah.
are over 1,000 articles out there with my name on them easily. So I needed to pick something that was already familiar and um, already felt accurate to me, and was also something that people were going would be willing to call me. I really didn't have a strategy long term. I mean, I thought that Foster was maybe going to be a stepping stone to something else, and it may still be. But going back and changing all of that work was too much for me, and you know, I'm not that exciting of a person. Foster
I
is
just
fine.
want to preface this by saying that today we will be discussing trans identity and transitioning and
Yeah.
I don't want to say coming out because that's such an outdated term, but um, informing others about your truth. But what we will not be discussing is bodies. That is not a part of the talk because you and all trans people are more than the physical transition. We would like to inform the people, but not fetishize. So let's start by explaining to them what non binary is. Some people are aware of what trans means as far as male to female to male, and all of that, but non binary is something that may be new or confusing to them. So, from your perspective, because I know, like, ask a trans person, although you cannot speak for all trans people, from your experience, what does it mean to be non binary?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, and I'm not a member of the Trans High Council. I don't have any official answers. And, it's been wonderful for me meeting non binary people whose expression is different from mine. Within the non binary family or within our part of the gender spectrum, there's so much diversity of expression.
Yeah.
I know cis people get very hung up on pronouns, so there are non-binary people who use he, him pronouns or she, her pronouns. We're not all they, them's. Everybody truly is different, and I think that to me is sort of the thing that non-binary people have in common is
Mm-hmm.
that even though some of us may present one way or another or even be fluid within different types of expression, we all um, we all claim the right to define for ourselves what our gender is. and it falls outside of the binary male or female, man, woman. I have met non-binary women and non-binary men, but even within those types of gender families, I guess you could say, there's a lot of variety. There's a lot of variety.
I use they and he interchangeably for you.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that's unique to our friendship,
Yes.
because I know that being recognized as a he or a masculine identifier is something that makes you feel good and it comforts you. So I try to use they when talking about you, because that identifies you as a trans person, because if you're a they, that's a very clear thing. But I try to
Yes.
use he and him when talking to you, just because, again, we're friends, so I know what your heart's desires are.
Yeah, I think it's important for me, everybody's different. For me, I like having that on paper. I myself have come across a piece of writing, by someone with binary pronouns and thought, what right do they have to write about my community? And, looked again and been like, oh, we're on the same team. I'm not perfect either. And I make mistakes too.
Let's unpack that, because you said something a little bit earlier that cis people are hung up on pronouns, and they absolutely are. But these labels mean as much to us as outliers, because they identify us. Because the thing about being cisgender or heterosexual is that you're the norm. And the only way, like, I don't particularly care for labels in general, but I understand that within communities, it says, I'm here. And it says, we are not the same, but we are equal, or we should be. So someone being the norm, they run things, they're societal standards, but that doesn't make our experiences as LGBTQ people any less invalid.
That's true. I think, one of the ways that I have really struggled with my gender is that the language that I have to talk about it and even to express it is so gendered. It's so binary. Everything is one or the other. It's black and white. There's, for such a massive, greedy language as English, which, gobbles up everything it touches, I just find that there's a very limited set of terms that I can use that feel true to myself. I'm not a gender scholar, I'm not an academic about it, but cis people care about, the joke about cis people caring about pronouns, when it's true, because when I come out to somebody, they want to know about my pronouns, and then they sort of are curious about my body.
Which is why we're not discussing bodies.
Oh, which is fine. Yeah, but for me on paper, I think it's important for someone to immediately know what I am. In person, most people default to male pronouns, which is what feels good to me. And at this point in my life, being called she or her is insulting, which is, and that giving up those pronouns and publicly letting go of them, talking about that and saying I'd like to be called he or they instead was really hard for me. I was raised by a mother who was a staunch feminist, very, radical feminist. She is what you would now call a TERF. And, I was raised...
Let's define TERF for those that are unaware.
TERF, for those who don't know, is a trans exclusionary radical feminist. For people who don't understand what those words mean, because they are kind of academic, it's the idea that that womanhood or femininity only belongs to women who are cis. So women who were assigned female at birth, socialized female, have a vagina, a uterus, ovaries. It's linked to the biology, female biology. And in this way, it excludes women who are physically non-normative. So women who were born, say, with an extra chromosome, women who were born infertile, can't have children, and trans women. And TERFs are a really ugly strain of feminism that hurts women. It's women finding creative ways of hating other women. And honestly, I think that if you're a TERF, you can't be a feminist. But
Well, I would agree with that. I have to master speaking up but not speaking over. So
yes.
I don't center how I
Mm-hmm.
feel in women's discussion
Mm-hmm.
about feminism. Um, because it's always a woman who can do that. I do make sure to stick up though. Like if someone like J.K. Rowling being violently transphobic,
Yes.
I'm going to speak up about that because that affects
Mm-hmm.
people that I know and people that I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
and that language is absolutely dangerous. Um, I want to talk a little bit about something that plenty LGBTQ people have in common is that they lean into chosen family and community, um, because sometimes familial relationships can be toxic, harmful. I want to talk a little bit about how, as you stepped into yourself and revealed to other people your truth, how your world and your relationships began to change.
Oh, well, like I said, my mother's a TERF, which comes with a lot of limitations for our relationship. Um, at the beginning, I was one of those, in so many ways, I'm textbook trans, right? Like I always knew I was different. And,
Yeah.
as someone who's in recovery, a lot of my drinking and my drug use came from wanting to feel differently in my body or wanting to play a role or feel released from the rules that women, especially, and a socialized female, that women have to play by. Um, at the beginning of my transition, which was, when I came out, I think that was what, 3 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
4 years ago. I publicly came out when I published an essay in the New York Times talking about being a non-binary trans person who at that time was engaged to a man, a
Mm-hmm.
cis heterosexual man. And when this essay was accepted by the Times, I sent my immediate family a text message, my mother, my father, and my sister. And I think I put my aunt in there. Like, put one more
Cover
person
all
in
the
there.
bases.
Why the fuck not? And I told them, I've got this essay coming out. I want you to know before everybody else is, before the millions and millions of people who read this do, that, I identify as not binary. I don't really know what that means long term, but I want you to know that this is who I am, and I'll figure it out on the way, and I'll keep you posted. And I got these sort of generic messages of support. Okay, sounds fine. We love you. Blah blah blah. Nothing special. And I was really hoping that, for once, that position of neutrality, that, we're so proud of you. I was really hoping that that would actually mean something, because the fact is that I do know trans people who are happily married and who, have beautiful relationships and who have wonderful families who embrace them and support them. And I really, really hoped that that was going to be true for me. I really thought that, I was going to be able to have everything I wanted, which was to live my gender expression freely, to do what I needed to do with my body, to feel comfortable in myself, to have a supportive immediate family that trusted me to make my decisions, and, a loving partner who was at my side the whole time. And none of those things happened for me. It doesn't mean it won't happen for other people, but for me, it did not happen. And what ended up happening for me was that I left my fiance when he said some really ugly transphobic things to me,
Yeah.
and when I made it clear to him that I would be moving forward with hormone therapy and top surgery, he essentially told me that he was only attracted to me if I had tits. And if the tits were gone, then he wasn't interested. So I got rid of him. And the following Christmas, which was very unpleasant, I had started testosterone at that point, and my voice had started to change. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting in a room full of my entire family, my father's side of the family. We're all sitting there. And for those who don't know, the testosterone affects everyone differently. So for me, I had kind of a raspy sort of Midwest voice. I thought I sounded great. I was very happy. I was very happy. I felt good. I was out of this bad relationship. I felt confident, and I was with my family on Christmas Day. And one of my uncles said, "Do you have a cold? Because your voice is really raspy. Do you have a throat cold?" And instead of lying or blowing it off in front of my entire family, I said, "No, I've been on testosterone since October. I'm transitioning medically. I feel great. I'm not sick." End of discussion. We moved on. Oh my God. Those words effectively ended my relationship with my immediate family. Both my mother and my father said horrible things to me several times, multiple times, that dredged up, I think, for them and for me, just a lifetime of resentments. And it quickly became apparent that just as I had had to leave my fiance, I was going to have to leave my family. It would be easy for me to say, oh, it's only because I'm trans or it's because I transitioned. I would say that that was the last straw for me and for them. The way that they attacked me over the last couple of years made it really clear that they had other things they were angry about that they wouldn't express or work on with me. And I think that goes both ways. So like I said, it's not that way for everybody, but it was that way for me. It's been 2 years.
It's very difficult for me to, I'm trying to control my face and my emotions. Obviously you're a person that's very close to me and you are a part of my chosen family. And so hearing these things, even though I've heard them time and time again, we've held each other's hands through some very tough things throughout our friendship. In fact, we were bonded by trauma experiences initially, and familial trauma experiences, I would say, among others. But people don't understand the magnitude of things said and things unsaid, how impactful they can be to a person, and how no matter how happy you are in your own life, those words that someone has said to you that has demeaned you, they never leave you. And that's why it's very important for people to have empathy and compassion for those that are different than them. And that this has nothing to do with queerness. It is just it's overarching. It starts from childhood. You need to love and accept people for who they are. And that means that you cannot enact trauma upon them. And it's very unfortunate that that was the case for you. And I know that although it is helpful that you have your chosen family, it is also always a reminder that your biological family has not shown up for you in the way in which you needed. And I hope that the next generation of LGBTQ people can have those relationships nurtured and maintained, because it's unfortunate to feel rejected and devalued by those that birthed you and raised you.
I agree. Some of the most meaningful conversations I've had in the last couple of years have been with the parents of trans children, um, who who love their kids and who don't want to do what my family has done, what so many families have done. They say, "What do I say to my kid? How can I support them?" I'm like, just the fact that you asked that question,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
huge. It's
It's
huge.
huge.
Um, for my family, you know, I always think to myself, if someone meets me and they don't like me, they think I'm a jerk or they think I'm a nasty person, I'm like, this is an improvement on what I was raised on. Okay. Like, you don't know the meaning of pain. You don't
No
know.
comment.
You don't know the meaning of pain. I am the nicest person comparatively. These people are emotional terrorists. Jesus Christ. But,
I can relate.
I just think that
As
it's,
you
yeah,
know.
right. Expert. I have come a really long way to be different from the people who raised me. And,
Mhm.
it just means so much to know that the next generation hopefully will have less of that kind of trauma. It's really harmful when a parent, I say this as an adult, I'm 36 years old. It is still harmful to me when my mother says, "I'm proud of you, and I always have been," but won't use my name or my pronouns. How can you say that?
It is gaslighting,
That is
and
called gaslighting. Yes.
I think that you also use an amazing word that I've never used before, but emotional terrorism. Um, yeah, it is. It's one of those. It reminds me of people in my childhood. I from the outside, everyone was very supportive. Like you can do whatever you want to do, right? Like
Hmm.
you can have the
Anything you can
world.
imagine. Yep.
Maybe you can imagine, but then they belittle and demean everything you do.
Yes.
So it's
But
like you're
not
getting
that.
mixed
But not
messages,
that. But not that. And it's like,
right?
are you trying to steer me? Like what, this weird push me pull you thing? It's
Yes,
really bizarre.
it's work, first of all, to face
Hmm.
the things that in your background, because everyone has a background, everyone has childhood trauma, even people that don't know they have it because they think, oh, and everything turned out fine, right? Then at some point in adulthood, they start looking back and they start having questions and they start analyzing their responses to things or their
Hmm.
defense mechanisms. And it
Yep.
always stems from something. It doesn't have to be parents. You could have the best parents in the world, but maybe there was a teacher who said something to you, or maybe there was a friend in high school that embarrassed you publicly and it affected your decisions and friendships, or
Hmm.
maybe your parents' divorce affected your relationships that you didn't
Hmm.
think it did. Like there's
Hmm.
always something because no human being is perfect.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think for me, that's one of the hardest things about being a parent myself is
yeah.
knowing first of all that I'm gonna fuck up,
Oh yeah.
and that this child who I adore, who I would give my life for, is going to
Sweet
get hurt.
child.
They are going to get hurt. They are going to suffer. They are gonna be chewed up by the world in so many different ways, and really all you can do is love them. With that said, I think that most of the love that I missed out on as a child, where it was just the simplest things. For me, I didn't, I mean, and I say this as someone like, I love my family. I love them. They are fucked up and they're still mine, and I love them. And I always will. I wish that they knew how to do the things that other people's families did. What I would give for a father who knew how to say, "I'm sorry," and mean it, right? Can you
Oh,
imagine?
geez.
I mean, I love my family and I knew they weren't normal when from a very young age, I mean, to me, normal was what was, were the sorts of families I saw on television. That
and
was
and
normal. I saw normal on TV, or maybe you did this too. I coveted my friends' families so much.
oh yeah.
So,
Oh yes.
even the
Yes.
dysfunctional ones, I was like, would you adopt me? You know,
See, I
at
think
some point, I'm like, these people are nuts. So
for me,
they're
it was a
wonderful
little
people
bit
and
different.
they're bad parents.
For me, it was a little bit different because from the outside looking in, I had
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult for me to feel like I could voice
Mm-hmm.
concerns or I could voice things that were impacting me because from the outside looking in, I had everything,
Yeah.
and I always compared myself to the visible pain of other people, right? Like
Yes.
the person who came to school disheveled, right? Like I never had to go to school disheveled, or the person who very obviously could not afford certain clothing items or was hungry at school. Those kinds of things. Um, it's a different thing when everyone sees you. And then like my mom was the fun mom to other people.
Other people. Yeah.
So when you see that and then like those types of personalities in your family that everyone loves the people, it's very people don't really understand what you're saying because they were like, oh no, but your mom's so fun and so cool, and it's like, yeah, to you,
Yeah, but you don't have to
not
live
to
with her. Right? That's
exactly.
real. I
It
don't
is.
think anybody coveted my family. Really. I remember being like, we were not allowed to have friends over.
Mm,
It was an imposition. And I remember a couple of times, being able to like get someone to come over for dinner, or, maybe once a year on our birthdays, we were allowed to have a slumber party with 3 people or fewer. There were a lot of rules. And
I
none of
can
my
relate.
friends ever wanted to come back. My friends never wanted to come back after the one visit.
Yeah,
After dinner, we were required to have dinner together every night at the same time.
that's a
And yep.
that's not too
And the
bad.
things I know, I don't want to do that. I'm like, I see as an adult, and now like I eat sandwiches over the sink.
Right,
That's what I do with my freedom. But we'd have
rebellious you.
these dinners that beautiful meals made by my mother, and we would sit there, and the conversations we had even were very, everything was just, it was, everything had a form, everything had a structure. After dinner we would all go and sit in the living room and read in silence. And if you were
Well, that
a
shaped you.
guest, correct. It did. Here I am. If you were a guest, especially a guest who was, say, in high school or middle school, you would not come back for seconds of that.
You mentioned being a parent, and I know
Yes,
that you are known to your son as mom. Um,
always.
how has that? First of all, what was that experience like informing your child of your truth, and how has it been uh, understanding him
Mm-hmm.
understanding?
I feel very fortunate. Um, I raised my child from birth to be accepting and to love other people. We have lots of different kinds of friends in our life, and we talk about them, and we ask questions that are respectful, and he he has trans friends already. So when I told him that I was trans, he accepted it without hesitation. He didn't ask me, what are your pronouns? Are you going to have surgery? He didn't ask me the stupid questions that adults ask me because he's a child.
Right.
And, I told him I'm always going to be mom. That's my name. And that's not going to change. And that seemed to be his biggest concern. He's a he's a really special kid, and I think that I'm definitely fucking him up in one way or another because I'm still his parent. But it means a lot to me to be able to provide him with a perspective that is wide open, and
And
he knows that he is acceptable through the change that I've been through. Like
right.
he sees me working through it, and I know he's learning from that.
what's so interesting is that I don't think any of these things are as complicated as adults make them out to be.
No, they're
I
really not.
remember, I remember Oprah's episode of Super Soul Sunday with Janet Mock, and she said that she realized that she had understood that sexuality is a spectrum. And when she realized that gender is a spectrum, it was like a aha moment. It was like
Hmm.
that's another thing that is a spectrum.
Yes. Yes.
And it's there are things like I always knew that I was different as a kid. But like you don't have the language. And it's like people put things on you, like they'll make fun of you and they'll say, "Oh, you like girl things." And I
Hmm.
never felt like I wanted to be a girl or I identified physically with girls. I always knew that I would rather do and talk about the things that the girls were talking about because I always thought
Hmm.
boys are dumb. Like, why are we talking about? Like, why are y'all talking about that? I just had no interest in it. But I never felt like I'm in the wrong body or something is inherently wrong with me physically. But I also always felt different.
Hmm.
And so, because of that feeling, I always advocate for trans people because I don't know what it's like to be trans, but I know what it's like to feel like something's not right with you because the
Hmm.
outside world is
Yes.
making you feel that way.
There are so few options for children. I think we've talked about this before, is that when you're a child, you're so reliant on the people who raise you.
Yeah.
We can't, we have no choice. To be a child is to be a prisoner in some ways. I'm on this, David Mamet is not a great man, but he's a wonderful writer. I've been reading a lot of his stuff. And he's got this great joke where he's got two characters talking, and one of them said, I had a crummy childhood. And the other guy says, well, I had one. It wasn't that great.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel. When you're a kid, you have no power. And for me, I knew I was different also, but like I said, being raised by someone who was that particular type of feminist, I was raised to believe that I could do anything a boy could do, that we were
Mm-hmm.
absolutely equal. My mother empowered me because I was a girl. I was brought up to always raise my hand in class, to be ambitious, to be assertive, to not take no for an answer. To do the things that were going to make me win. Without, outside of the house, that was fine. Inside the
Right.
house, the rules were different, right? And
Absolutely.
my
Be
mother
strong,
dressed
but
me.
not strong
Yeah,
against me.
correct. Fight anything you want except your parents. I
Right.
was dressed gender neutral always. I went through a dresses phase, I think, when I was like 5. But other than that, I looked like a boy, I dressed like a boy, act like a boy, I deck you like a boy,
Right.
And in retrospect, I'm glad that I was raised with the skills that I have now. But God, they beat it into me.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
when you're not given a choice, or even when you don't know what your choices are. When I think about you as a little boy thinking, I want things to be pretty. Well, what does pretty mean to you at that age? Does it mean things that are pink, things that glitter,
Sparkly.
sparkly? Is it things that you see on television that are
I was a big
pretty?
purple boy. I loved
Purple is
purple. And
it's a
it's
great color.
and I remember um all of a sudden purple was fine and then all of a sudden it wasn't. Like it was just like
Up to a
I
certain
was
age, yeah.
it was like a different
Mm-hmm.
and I always encourage parents to let children gravitate toward what they gravitate towards
Yeah.
because like just because a boy likes something sparkly doesn't mean he's gay. Like it just even if he is, it doesn't matter. But I'm saying like these
Mm-hmm.
things boys don't know that something is wrong unless you tell them. So the boy will always remember getting his hand smacked when he reached for the Barbie doll
Something nice. Or if he wants
instead
to wear
of
silk, or if he wants to
exactly.
try
It's just
on his mom's lipstick, or
but that does
anything.
not happen with girls, which is another thing
Mm-hmm.
that like growing up, I saw girls that were tomboys
Yeah.
playing sports, uh, wearing baggy clothes, male presenting, and it was
Mm-hmm.
not an indictment of their character or their
No,
personhood.
not at that age.
God forbid. I want to fucking watch Clarissa Explains It All day.
Oh, party over. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I think girls definitely, at least in my childhood also, you get a lot more leeway up to a certain age. Up through maybe the end of middle school, and then you're a dyke.
that's true.
Once, I think once kids start putting more emphasis on heteronormativity and who will go to the dance with you and who's shaving their legs, and when you start wearing makeup to school, all that stuff, I think that once people get really attached to impressing each other with those social norms, then things get difficult for gender nonconforming kids.
You said something earlier about childhood feeling like a prison, and I relate to that on so many levels. But it was a bridge to Mariah.
Mariah, the one, the only.
We had this conversation.
Mariah, if you're listening, we love you.
Right. First of all, we love you. Second of all, that book, actually, it took me some days to recover from when I finished it, and it still has not left me. Knowing the amount of trauma that was enacted on her from the birth till, I mean, Jesus Christ, every page you turned, it was just trauma and trauma and trauma. And people who, I mean, there are things that we've both endured that we're not speaking about here today. But people that have endured the things that we have endured in our lifetimes, I don't understand how any of us are alive, honestly. Like, it's so easy just to die because it's so heavy. And reading that, I even sent some things to my brother because how she processed her familial trauma is very similar to how I deal with my things as an adult. It's some pages that felt like I wrote them. I mean, I sent you those.
Yes.
It just was like,
yes. You could have written those words.
And it makes me so incredibly sad because kids are defenseless. They depend on you for everything.
Everything.
And something as simple, as harmless as a word or something you say to the kid can stay with them
forever.
Ever. And that just, it broke my heart. And one thing that she has done in her therapy is she refers to her mother by her first name to create an emotional distance. And she also refers to her brother as ex-brother and her sister as ex-sister. And I would never refer to my mom by her first name, but because that's just not, that doesn't create distance for me. Like, it's not it doesn't work. It doesn't work. But referring to someone as an ex, I was like, aha, that does create the emotional distance.
I call mine my biological mother.
See, I don't even want that.
These are my biological parents. They're not my real parents.
I don't want that.
I just think, I feel so lucky. And I say this as, a single parent who is self-supporting as a writer, which is not the most, financially stable way of making a living. God bless the arts. I just, there are so many things I could have done differently. I got pregnant when I was 23. So my child has just turned 12, which is amazing and wonderful. And I remember thinking when I got
no crazy preteen stuff yet? Like, you're still enjoying?
Yes, he still wants to snuggle. He's a little bit surly sometimes, but I'm like, so who isn't? I don't know. Yeah. I think I just don't have, I remember so distinctly what it was like to be a child. And I remember being pregnant with him and just thinking, like, this is, having fucked up literally every other thing in my life. Like, this is the one thing I don't want to fuck up. And I have protected him and guarded him and nurtured him, knowing that his presence in my life was a gift. And I really wish that more parents would remember that, you know, your child is not your property. They are not your servant. They are not
No,
your
they are not.
tool. They are not your mirror. They're a person, and you have been given this gift. You know, you've been given this immense privilege of being in this little person's life. What would you not do for them? You know,
You are not there to shape them. You are there
no.
to guide them. And that is what I've learned. But you know what? The reason why you are that parent is because of your childhood, which is the same thing with me. The reason why I'm so intentional about everything I do in regards to parenthood is because I did not have that. And I understand what hole that leaves. I understand what feelings that brings. And I really,
Sorry, it's okay. My dog tipped the camera over.
it's okay. I know that there's going to be something that I'm not going to do well. I know there's going to be something that Biscuit or any of my children, future children, will have to talk about in therapy, right? But I don't want it to be something that shakes the foundation of who they are. I just want to be annoying, like, you know, like I just like, oh, my dad's annoying, right? Like I want to be the. I don't want to be
he's
like,
always texting me how much he loves me.
exactly.
So,
oh my God, can he stop sending me money? Oh my God, can he stop telling me I'm amazing? Like I want to be the person that my child is like, enough. I don't want to be the person that my child is like, enough.
Yeah, that's real. No, that's a great way of putting that. It is. I mean, when my son got to a certain age, I mean, like I said, one of the things I would most wish from my own parents is the willingness to apologize and take ownership.
You already know.
It is a gift that I have given to my own child. I have apologized to him when I am wrong. I encourage him to tell me when he disagrees, and not so that I can flip the argument around and win, because it's so easy to win an argument against a 5-year-old. It's so easy,
right.
But I'm not doing that. You know, I just, at a certain age, when he started becoming more reasonable, you know, around 6, 7, when he started to really know his own mind, I started a practice of asking him periodically, how do you think we're doing? We do a check-in. You know, are you happy with the way things are? Do you like where we live? How's your teacher? How's your school? Do you like the way I'm parenting you? I
love that. I love that.
Who would know better than him?
Than you know? Him.
Yeah. And
I'm like that with Biscuit, but not as, I mean, obviously she's 3, but
she's 3. It's coming though. It's coming.
But she's smart, and I always apologize to her. Like if I'm very patient with her, but obviously, like if I'm working, right, and she wants my attention and I can't give it to her right away, I can say something snappily, or I can make her wait, and I apologize after, because I know what that's like to feel like your presence is a problem, and I never want her to feel that way. So I even if it's just like, give me a second, I realize that that in and of itself is not very warm. So I'll say, you know what, I'm so sorry, I was too preoccupied with work. It's Daddy and Biscuit time. What did you want from me? Tell me what you need. You know, I make sure to, even when I know that I'm not going to let her do something, I make sure to listen to her. I want her to always know that her emotions and feelings are valid and valued, even if it's as ridiculous as I want a cupcake for breakfast. Let's talk about it. She's not getting a cupcake for breakfast.
No, but it sounds great.
I would like for her to feel like she can tell me why she deserves a cupcake for breakfast. Okay, so why do you think that the cupcake is an appropriate breakfast food instead of fruit and nuts, or oatmeal, or cereal,
yogurt,
like
something,
yogurt, like toast, you know, and eggs? Like, tell me why the cupcake is the thing. She's like, I just really want it. Well, okay, I understand, but a cupcake is not appropriate breakfast food because it's not nutritious. A cupcake is for dessert. Now, when she gets to the age when she can ask me what's the difference between a muffin and a cupcake, then maybe we can negotiate some other things.
Yeah,
But
the
she's
jury's
not
still out
there
on
yet.
that one.
And I'm very fortunate in that she is quite reasonable for a 3-year-old. I mean, she's
She's
very
so smart,
understanding,
so
and
verbal.
even if she has a tantrum because you tell her no, she comes down and she's like, okay.
Oh.
And it's because I let
Yeah.
her do those
Hmm.
things. I don't make her feel like she's in trouble because she's having an emotional reaction to something.
Hmm.
Who likes the word no?
Nobody.
I'm in my 30s and I hate to be told no. What happens when a 3-year-old gets told no? Of course, they're freaking out. So
Yeah.
I always try to understand that kids are figuring out the world. We don't have it all figured out. We never will. But they are dependent on us and they have no answers.
No, none. They
So
have insights, though. I think that
they
they,
do. And they have
I mean,
feelings.
they do. And I really think they pick up on things that we are desensitized to. I think, I mean, for example, I'm 6'1" and built long,
Yeah.
lanky. My mother is 5'5" on a good day and about a size 14. Okay. And in the 90s, there was that magazine called Mode Magazine. Do you remember
Yes.
that? Yes. Okay. My mother, the feminist, always made such a big deal about having mode around the house and about pointing out like all the things that people still do now, pointing out Photoshop and saying, oh, that's so unrealistic, or nobody looks like that. It's like, well, first of all, I am 6'1", and at that point in my life, I was like 110 pounds. So don't tell me that nobody looks like that, because I did.
Because you did.
I had the body when I was like 14. But she made such a point about, fat inclusiveness and like all bodies are beautiful, all women are
Right.
beautiful. You can be a really large person and be gorgeous. And she was right. So it was one of those things where the messaging didn't match her attitude, though, because the number of times I've seen that woman in a swimsuit, I can count on one hand. She would say these things. She was trying to give my sister and
She
I
was trying to
this.
convince herself.
She was. I think she was trying to do the right thing and say what we needed to hear. But I saw her, I think, twice in a bathing suit up until I graduated from high school. I saw her shrinking her portions on her plate.
Mm.
I heard the things she said about other big women.
Mm-hmm.
And even if she would point out something like, oh, even, these portrayals of fat women, they're all still hourglasses. Where are the apples?
Yeah.
Where are the black women? These are all hourglass shaped white women with perfect makeup.
Right.
Where are the real fat women?
Yeah.
Even though she would point that kind of stuff out, I have a really hard time believing that it came from a place of self-love. And I think that for my parenting, I make a real deal out of that, is that, even if the house is messy, even if, we have a bad day and it's just like ramen for dinner, whatever, I try to show my son how much I love myself.
Yeah. See, I'm not there yet. It's because obviously I don't want to say suffer, but I've dealt with weight issues my entire life. And so I am always up and down with that. But the one thing that I try to do is never do those things in front of this kid, never do the self-loathing in front of her. But I always, I'm making a point because I'm cognizant that I'm raising a Black girl. I'm cognizant that I'm raising a darker skinned Black girl.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that I did is when we started watching movies, Disney things, we only watched Princess Tiana and Moana and
Yes.
Mulan. I made sure to start with the only Black princess, right, and then introduce other girls of color before getting into the Frozen. Not because I don't like those films, but because I thought it was important for her initiation into those things to be someone that looked like her. I really loved that anyone that bought her a doll asked me if I had a preference or if I was only accepting Black dolls, because
Oh,
that is and I was very happy about that.
I love that people
Even
ask.
with
That's
books,
great. Yes.
because I think it's so important for the first images that
Hmm.
kids are consuming, especially Black children, to be things that look like them, because the
Hmm.
world is going to tell you that what you are isn't beautiful. The world's going to tell you
Yes.
that what you are is less than. So you need to have that foundation of images in
Hmm.
your face, inundated
Yes.
with it, and
Yes.
being told, I sing, I haven't done it the last couple of weeks, but generally I sing Brown Skin Girl to her every night before bed, in
Oh,
bed
hell
with
yeah.
her. We also sing other songs, but that is something that I'm happy exists for her, that she can know that someone that looks like her is worthy of love
Hmm.
and beauty. And
Hmm.
it's so important to be aware, right?
Hmm.
That's the awareness.
Hmm.
Um, like it's like when we ignore racism and colorism and transphobia and homophobia and all those things, we do a disservice to our children.
I agree.
That awareness is important because I can parent from a place of intention. That the intention of me doing those things is to arm
Hmm.
her with messages of self-love and
Yes.
beauty that looks
Yes.
like her, so that when she is challenged when she gets older in the outside world, she'll be able to say, don't
No, no,
put your shit
no.
on me,
Good for her. She
you
should
know.
never have to deal with that.
And
No.
she's already, I'm raising a
It's,
Black feminist child.
I would not expect anything less from you. But you know, you're exactly
Correct.
right. She will be challenged. She will be challenged. And I hope that she knows that she has that foundation to fall back on. You know, she
Yeah,
is beautiful and smart and
she is.
and
I love her so
fierce.
much.
You know, she's a
She is.
wonderful, wonderful
She
person.
is. She's
She's a
and I
wonderful
love that you
person.
guys got to spend time together, because it's very important for me, um, to, as you said, have a community of people who are all different. And she had a host of family
Yes.
that
Hmm.
are all different groups of people, all different classifiers. She won't know that being trans is othered. She won't know that being
Hmm.
gay is othered. She will know that the world is a beautiful rainbow of all different kinds and types of people
Hmm.
who she happens to be one of.
Yes. And
And
that is such a gift.
I think it's so important, because people always ask me, like I've had so many people come to me and say, when is the right age to talk to my kids about LGBTQ people? And I say
Now, are you kidding me?
before preschool, because
Yes.
once they get into preschool and daycare and all these other people define the world for them. Because
Yes.
God forbid a kid at daycare uses the F word, right?
That might
For
be
those
my
that are
kid.
not aware, the FAG, well, that's a different thing.
The
But
other F word. Yeah, we don't
uses,
use that word in my house. No.
yeah. So imagine a kid uses that word, and then that is a defining moment for your child who's never had any idea. So they're going to ask questions, and then the kid's going to tell them what it means, and you have lost the opportunity to be the first impression for them. And
Yes.
I think the thing that's interesting is that people, when they think about LGBTQ people, their mind goes to sex, right? Like, so you don't have to discuss sex
No.
with a 3-year-old. You
Well,
can say
no,
something.
not at all. I
Go
mean,
ahead.
and of course that discounts the presence of, say, asexual people also who are
Correct.
in our
Aromantic.
community
Yeah.
and have a different relationship to their sexuality than, say, I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
it's
that's
just like
that's a
all you
truth.
have to do is say that everyone is different. Some kids have a mommy
Mhm.
and a daddy. Some kids have a mommy or a daddy. Some kids have 2 mommies, and some kids have 2 daddies.
Mhm.
And I swear to you, then most kids will be like, okay, and go away, because
Mhm.
they've seen the world. You can't hide them from the world, but you want to make sure that your kid is an ally and not a bully. And that is the
Yes.
difference. You want your
Yes.
child to stand up for, well, I guess that's not always true, because some parents do want their kids to be the bully, but that's counterproductive
Mhm.
to a loving society that accepts people. So, I mean, what is something that you would want parents to understand about being trans?
When I work with parents of trans children or with families who have trans members in them, I just remind them that every person, your child is going to be so many people in their life. They're going to change so many times. Every time you blink, they've learned a new skill, or they found out a new thing about themselves, or they've discovered a new book or new music or a new friend. And our gender is a much deeper part of ourselves than our preferences. It is one of the things that you get to discover with your child. It is a new way of knowing them, and it is a new way of them knowing themselves. When it comes to gender and personal expression, sexuality, all of those things, your child is in the driver's seat, not you. Your job is to love them unconditionally and believe them when they tell you who they are.
I love that. I think that's the perfect way to end this, but I want to get this out. For people that are still confused, let me just say this. Trans women are women. Trans men are men. Non-binary people can identify with both genders, both binary genders, or neither.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those identities are valid. And
Yes.
none of them need to be validated by you. It is okay just to take people for how they present and call them the name and the gender identifiers in which they ask you. Dead naming, which is calling someone by their birth name and not their chosen name, is violent. It is vile and it is violent, and please don't do it. It happens to trans people, especially after they die or if they're murdered. It's wild in our legal system. Sometimes we don't even know the exact rates of trans people that are killed because they're dead named. Please don't do it. Please listen to people when they tell you who they are, because it does you no good and it does them no good to not do what they ask you to do. Please, please, please respect people's boundaries. Because listen, here's the thing. Anytime, I'm trying not to cry. Anytime things like that happen, they impact me greatly because I think about someone doing that to you. Just don't do it. Don't do it. It is harmful. We've had countless conversations of things that people have done and said that have hurt you greatly. Do not inflict that amount of pain on someone just because you want to be a fucking asshole. Respect people. I want to thank my guest and friend and family, Foster. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I love you too. Where would I be without my friends? I love you.
I love you so much. This is Conversations with Sire. I'll see you next time.